Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today I'm talking about Yokai Watch. This game came out in 2015 alongside a TV show. It flew a little under my radar, like I knew about it, but at the same time I'm not exactly the target demographic for something like this, so this was more something that I picked up when I found the game for $5. Yokai are these little monster spirit things that can basically like inflict these feelings or emotions on humans, like hunger and sadness and happiness, and they can play little tricks, and some are good, some are bad. Now, normally humans cannot see the yokai unless you are equipped with a yokai watch, which gives you the ability to see said yokai. Now, our main protagonist happens to find almost like an ancient gumball machine near a temple, and he puts a coin in there and turns it, and a little capsule pops out, and out comes our protagonist's sidekick, narrator, introducer to the yokai world, a little ghost named Whisper. And essentially your main character is haunted by this ghost named Whisper for the remainder of the game. Now, he's not really like haunted. The Whisper is a friendly character, and he never uses the word haunted, but he just follows your main character around now that he has a yokai watch and he can see other yokai and just kind of explain things about the yokai world. Really, Whisper, he says that he's your butler, and so he's just kind of like a comedic narrator to introduce you to what's going on. And there is some pretty entertaining back and forth between your main character and Whisper. The overall tone of this game is pretty comedic, and I actually like the jokes and the banter between characters. So this ancient gumball thing, it actually comes into play gameplay-wise, where you can, if you collect these coins in the game, you can use them 3 a day, like a normal real-life day. You can use 3 of them, and most of the time in these capsules are going to be little items, but very rare chances you can actually get a rare yokai to join your party. And this only happened to me once. I played this game over the course of maybe 6 days, and I believe I used the machine 3 times every single day, and I only got 1 yokai out of it, but it was a rank A. So these yokai, they are ranked based on their rarity. Obviously, a rank D yokai isn't going to be as efficient as a rank S yokai, which I only occurred once, and it was through the story, so it was like a guaranteed rank S. However, through this little ancient gumball machine, I did find a rank A, and this is the only rank A yokai I found as well. So yes, you can befriend these yokai. You don't catch them like in Pokemon. Basically, they say that they're going to be your friends, and you can equip a party of up to 6 yokai. 3 of them are out battling, but you can trade in and out these 3 as you will. You basically like rotate this disc, and based on your positioning of where you put these yokai, they'll come into play. And then you have like your 3 in the front that are doing the battling, and then your 3 in the back that you can still use items and do other things with them. The combat system is not like Pokemon. It's not a turn-based game. Basically, the 3 yokai that you have out in the front are going to be doing auto-battling in a way. Like, you're still affecting the game pretty significantly, but they're going to do their basic attack, their little support ability, or they might just feel lazy and loaf around and just not feel like battling, which is infuriating to see that. But yeah, these guys are automatically going to be doing their thing. Now, what you're doing is first and foremost, you can pin which enemy you want them to all focus their fire on, or like which part, if you're fighting against a big boss, you place a little pin on where you want them to target their attacks, whether it's like a weak point on a boss or something like that. And then there might be occasionally little floaty, glowy orbs that you can throw your pin at and collect items as well. So you're placing the pin, telling them to attack, and then each yokai has like a super ability that you need to activate. And to activate them, you have to click on the yokai. This is all on the touchscreen, by the way. So you click on the yokai, and then you do one of 3 things. You either have to like spin your touchscreen really fast, fast, you have to pop all these little yellow bubbles, or you have to draw these 3 little patterns. And I always liked the spin because that was the quickest and fastest to like activate this ultimate ability, and the slowest, the worst one, was trying to draw those 3 patterns, especially if you're trying to go really fast, because if you mess up, if it's not close enough to the desired pattern, you gotta keep retrying it until you finally do pull it off. And once you do that, your yokai is gonna go do their super ability. In addition to this, yokai can get basically like despirited. I can't remember the exact word for it. They get discouraged or something. And so you have to purify them. So basically you cycle the discouraged yokai into the back line, and then you pretty much do one of 3 different minigames as well. You like rub the smoke away from them, or spin, and then there was one more, pop the bubbles. If you don't do this, they're not going to fight nearly as well. And in addition to this, you can also use items. So while it doesn't sound like you're doing a lot when I say that they're doing their like auto battling, really they're not. Their basic attack doesn't do like that much damage. And most of the time, assuming you're like cycling between all your yokai and you're making sure that they're all spirited up, I can't remember the words for this, so they're all motivated to keep fighting, and placing pins on where you want them to target, you're usually going to be actively doing something on that touchscreen, to the point where I was worried if am I doing damage to my touchscreen? Because I remember going pretty heavy playing WarioWare touched on my DS and destroying that touchscreen. So I was a little worried that by how fast I was moving my stylus along that touchpad. I will say there are downtimes, especially during really big, long boss fights, where I've did all my super abilities on all 6 of my yokai, and none of my yokai need any items to be healed up or anything like that. And I do feel like there are moments when you're just kind of watching your yokai do their basic attacks on wherever you told them to attack, and there's not really like anything for you to do. Now, this isn't a problem during normal battles, because normal battles last maybe a minute, and you'd be lucky if you got through all 6 of your yokai super abilities before actually defeating the enemy. But the bosses can tend to have a ton of health, especially if you didn't do a lot of the side quests or grinding like I did. I kind of just did like a beeline for the main story most of the time when I played this game. And so my yokai probably were fairly underleveled by the end game, and some of these end game bosses, yeah, they have like a huge health pool, and battles can take maybe upwards of 10 minutes even. But even then, like when I'm going against these end game level bosses, I was still actively trying to use items to heal up my party members. Now, there's a whole like science to the yokai. They all have their different stats, and like in terms of like placement, you want to place them with similar clan of yokai, and you can change yokai clans, and it's this whole systematic thing that you can really dive into if you want to min-max this game. I didn't play around with that too much, and the difficulty wise with me, when just making mostly a beeline for the main plot and not really grinding, I felt like it was a decent amount of difficulty for me. Like I still would struggle against the bosses, but that kind of made the bosses my favorite part of this game, because I was actively engaged with it, trying to figure out the best strategy. I was actively worried about actually losing against these bosses. And then the main little bad guys, just that fodder, it wasn't too difficult. Like, you're still actively doing the special abilities, but I wasn't too worried about the difficulty against the main the little mini guys. Now, how you accrue more yokai, at least how I accrued most yokai, is probably going to be through the story. Automatically you get free yokai assigned to you as the story progresses, but when you face against regular yokai, not bosses obviously, but regular yokai, there is a very, very small chance that one of them will decide that they like you enough to be your friend and help fight for you. They said that you could feed the enemies food, which would greatly increase your chances of befriending these yokai, but I would give enemy yokai food pretty much every time I encountered them if I didn't already have a similar species befriended, and it just never seemed to happen. Like, the chances of this happening were so low. I feel like I befriended maybe 5 random yokai. So I kind of like the systems better for something more like Pokemon with the Pokeballs, or more like Persona, where you can actively do something to get the chance to befriend these creatures. But no, I just feel like the chances of befriending them are way too low out in the wild. You can fuse 2 yokai together to create a whole new yokai, pretty similar to a system like Persona. I didn't play around too much with this system, but it is something that you can dive into a little more if you would like. And it wasn't until the very end of the game, like facing the second to last or third to last boss, where one of my yokai actually evolved. And I did a double take, like, wait, yokai can evolve? And that just kind of goes to show how much I didn't really just goof around on this game or grind up my yokai if I only just found out that yokai can evolve at the end of the game. But if you did want to goof around in this game, there's plenty of side quests for you to do, little things about learning more about the different yokai, or you can go catch bugs and go fishing and find all these items. There's a whole like underground sewer network like underneath the city that you can go explore. So there's a lot of stuff that you can explore and dive into if you really want to sink your teeth into this game. I feel like I would have enjoyed doing more of this side content if the map was a little more clear and laid out, because environmentally, you're basically just playing in like a suburban area, like a suburban city, and so it all looks the same. Or at least for the most part. And I feel like the map is just like a mini map with no words of locations, like with the name of each section of the city that you live in. And so when I would like read walkthroughs, or when a side quest told me to go to a certain location, I had to really either just wander around and hope that it would tell me like what part of the city I'm in, or I would have to like look up a map. So I wish that there was a very clear overworld map of this city that I'm in, and like with each section labeled, maybe tell me like what types of shops are in each section, because there are some required, I guess they're not really side quests if they're required, but there's like a side thing that you need to do where you need to upgrade the rank of your yokai watch to rank C, B, A, and then after you beat the game, you could potentially rank it up to S. But basically the idea is, in order to rank it up, you have to go to this watchmaker's store, and he gives you a little side quest like defeat these 3 different yokai in order to upgrade. So he kind of gives you the location of where you can find these yokai, but the map doesn't tell you the names of these locations. So you're like, wait, where is that? And then you have to look it up online where those guys are at. This would also help if I had unlocked fast travel earlier. I feel like you got to play maybe 3/4 of the way into the game until you finally do unlock fast travel. This could have been a feature very early on into the game. But it is fun just kind of exploring this city. There's little alleyways where there are more powerful yokai that you can face off against and hope that you somehow manage to befriend them and collect items. Yokai can have one piece of equipment, so you can potentially find some powerful equipment to give to your yokai. And every once in a while, I'm not sure exactly like what triggers this, but I do think you have to be playing at nighttime, where you'll almost go into like this pseudo parallel world where this big orc red looking yokai is trying to like hunt you down in this section of the map, and then you have a chance to navigate and like sneak through all his henchmen to collect really good items. But if he catches you, then you basically lose and wake up in your own bed. And so it's kind of like almost like a stealth little mode, and I wish that it kind of triggered more so I had more opportunities to do this. But yeah, so you just kind of like have to like sneak around his minions, because if his minions see you, then he'll just start running towards you, and it's basically like you have to get to the safe zone quick. You don't really have time to start looking for items. The ending I felt like was pretty abrupt. Now they would occasionally allude to something's coming, something dangerous is coming, you have no idea, but like they didn't really like talk about that, and they didn't really talk much about like the lore of the yokai and the yokai world until like the very last chapter. And then it's like, oh, by the way, there's a yokai world, there's a big bad yokai, he wants to take over the human world. Like it's just kind of throws all of this lore at you at the very end of the game, where I feel like they could have padded it out throughout the game. Like, you could slowly learn more and more about yokai in the yokai world. The game does end pretty abruptly and conclusively, where I feel like it could be like, okay, that's it, the game is over, no more yokai. But then there is, like, not to spoil too much, but after the credits there's a little like, oh, yokai are still around kind of thing. And so obviously they still are around because there are sequels to this yokai game. I feel like they tried to do like the Pokemon thing in the sequel to this game where they did like 2 different versions, and then I think the third series of yokai games only came out in Japan, so we're kind of out of luck here in America. Overall, the game took me 12 hours, and to give you a reference for like how long it usually takes, HowLongToBeat.com says this game takes about 20 hours. So I really did skip most of the side stuff because that didn't really like interest me. Technically, I wanted to play the main story. That's what interested me. And I never felt the need to go out and grind and get equipment. I was able to hold my own even through the end, even though it did take a longer amount of time than it probably should have. Overall, I think I will give this game a 3 out of 5. It's definitely not a Pokemon copycat. It's, for one, the combat is completely different. But like, yeah, it is like a monster trainer game. So there are similarities to Pokemon, but it definitely carves its own kind of niche in the genre. And I had actually had a pretty decent time with it. I can kind of get why some people might want to get into yokai. Did people get into yokai? I'm sure there's groups out there, but I really didn't feel like I heard anybody talk about this series, even though I feel like they really tried to make a hard push on the game and the TV show. But maybe it's just because I don't hang around kids who would have been the target demographic for that. Anyway, let me know if you were into yokai or still are. That's it for me, though. I'll talk to you later. Bye!